Hey guys, I'm Brian Bottkiller, and in today's episode of Being a Successful Musician, we're going to talk about Apple Music. Oh man, I'm gonna have fun with this one. So, I've been pretty vocal about my dislike for Apple Music. Pretty vocal. And I've gotten into a lot of Twitter arguments with a lot of people. And I have written a lot of things about Apple Music, and basically I've just said I'm not into it, and I don't like what Apple does, and Apple's not going to save the world, and they're not going to save the music industry. A few months ago, everybody thought that Tidal was going to save the music industry, and it's not. And now everybody thinks that Apple Music is going to save the music industry, and it's not. Because the music industry doesn't need saving, because it can't really be saved, because the music industry, as we know it, is not an industry anymore. That goes a little deeper than we necessarily need to go into in this video, but it bears mentioning. So, what is Apple Music? Well, I'm sure you know about it, and I'm sure that you've already been subjected to it, and I'm sure that maybe a lot of you are using it. It is a subscriber-based streaming music service, just like all the other ones out there. And it has a library of music that you get access to when you pay a fee per month. Those fees are $9.99 for a single user and $14.99 for a family, which is 5 devices, I think, accessing the service. And it is just another streaming music service. Sorry. It has a social network built into it, kind of like iTunes Ping. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it was a giant failure. It has a social network built into it called Apple Music Connect. That is Apple's lame excuse of a way to make musicians feel like Apple cares about them, and to give musicians a way to communicate with fans, and all this stupid BS that is bullshit when you really come right down to it. We'll talk about that in a moment. First of all, of course, just like anything else, one of the reasons people usually come to me is you want to find out, well, how do I get onto Apple Music? Just like all the other stupid music streaming services, it's the exact same thing. Get with the digital aggregator. Get with Ditto Music, get with CD Baby, State 51 Conspiracy, TuneCore, whomever. Get your music on there, pay the fee, get aggregated onto Apple Music, boom, you're good. What are you going to get when you get your music onto Apple Music? The same BS that you get from any other streaming service. A payout that is not clear, which I understand to be somewhere around the range of either 0.007 cents or 0.002 cents. Less than a penny, kids, remember that. That's the payout you're going to get. And you're going to get access to Apple's lame excuse for another social media music network, and that is Apple Music Connect. And that's really it. That's all you're going to get. You're not getting access, again, like I say, to a music streaming service that I think does a whole lot of anything. It would be nice if Apple Music were this game changer. And I've read all these articles by Forbes and everyone else in the friggin' business who's talking about Apple has a secret conspiracy to make you pay for music, and it's gonna work, and Apple's gonna do this, and Apple's gonna do that, and Apple's gonna fix this and fix that, and blah, 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 and all this stupid bullshit. Everyone kissing Apple's ass, as everyone always does, because that's the fun thing to do, and that's just what you do, apparently. You just kiss Apple's ass, because they're the most profitable company in the world, obviously, never mind the fact that they are profitable because of their marketing and because they did build good products for a period of time. And yeah, they still build all right products, but it's just good to kiss their ass, apparently, because they're this profitable company and the most profitable in the business, and they look cool, and et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, let's all kiss their ass. And hey, Apple has a music streaming service. We better all kiss their ass and talk about how they're going to make things better and all this stupid BS. And hey, Dr. Dre and Trent Reznor work over there, so Apple must care about musicians. And hey, Apple rolled out Drake of all people, at their Apple Music announcement to talk about how great Apple Music is for musicians. And they also rolled out some no-name garage band musician that no one knows, and talked about how they love indie musicians and yada, 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 and all this BS. So everyone kisses their ass, and everyone talks about how they're going to change everything and blah, blah, and they're not. And I'm sorry, but they're not, because yet another streaming music service isn't going to do anything. All everyone is doing right now is just vying for as many users who are willing to cough up money every month as they can possibly get. That's all these services are doing. They're working to get as many people to buy into this as they possibly can. And they are in the practice of doing that. They are cheapening music. They are cheapening the work that artists and musicians do in general. And, they're just kind of making us look like fools. If you release a new record now, which I'm getting ready to do, you're basically just expected to just give it all away for free. I mean, you should just plan on giving your music away for free, whether it's going to be on SoundCloud or whether it's going to be on a streaming music service or whatever. Just figure it's being given away for free. You're not going to make jack shit off of it. Like, sorry, but you're not. And if you can accept that, then that's fine. And if you're okay with that, then that's fine. But I am not okay with that. I don't think that the payouts that streaming music services offer are worth anything. And I really find it abhorrent that all of these services charge their monthly fee, but none of that has to do with anything that musicians ever see in the long run. I find it even more abhorrent that Apple, being the richest company in the entire world, a multi-billion dollar company, Apple, of all companies, had decided that they were not going to pay musicians any royalties for the first 3 months of Apple Music's release. That's right. Apple Music dropped on June 30th, so we're about 2 weeks into it right now. And Apple wasn't going to pay musicians a single red cent for the first 3 months. Now, that includes me as an indie musician, and that includes the big guys out there as well, the top tier musicians who don't really need streaming music revenue. But Apple was going to do this because, of course, this was their way of, being able to get people interested in the service. And so that's what they were looking to do, and they weren't going to pay anyone during it. So then Our Lady of Music Industry Peace, our heroine, Taylor Swift, I never thought that she would end up being the champion for musicians that she has been, but she is. Taylor Swift stands up and says, well, Apple, we don't ask you to give us free iPhones, so why do you ask us to give you our music for free? And she wrote this open letter, and, she was hitting Apple the same way she hit Spotify. And I love the fact that she does this, and I am all about what Taylor Swift does. And she called him out. And what did Apple have to do but get Eddie Q and his poorly written tweets out onto the internet to say Apple will pay musicians for the first 3-month trial, and Apple cares about musicians and all this BS. Now, Taylor Swift called it a win, basically. She said, oh, that's great. Apparently Eddie Q called Taylor Swift personally, whatever. And everybody was happy, and everybody acted like, oh, Apple listens to musicians. Oh, Apple's so great. They listened to Taylor Swift, and now they're going to pay us for the first 3 fucking months that they should have been paying anyway. And everyone wanted to act like Apple was fucking great. Yet again, everyone kisses their ass because they decided to do the thing that they should have been doing anyway, that really legally they're pretty much bound to do. Everyone acts like, oh, Apple's so great. They listen to music. Apple is not great, and they don't listen to musicians, guys. They listen to Taylor Swift because Taylor Swift is a top-tier musician, and she can move the masses. If she tells her fans, don't bother signing up for Apple Music, a lot of them probably aren't going to. And Apple was scared, and that's good, and they should be. But a lot of us were out there already talking about this long before Taylor Swift threw her shoes into the ring. We were all out there, guys like me and other musicians on Twitter and on other social networks saying, you don't get to do this, Apple. It's bullshit. We don't agree with you basically saying that you're just going to rip us off for 3 months, because lo and behold, if one of us as an independent musician were to get a big hit on Apple Music for those first 3 months, we wouldn't have been paid anything. And everyone acts like Apple is fucking great because Apple decided to do the thing that Apple is supposed to be doing anyway. I'm sorry, it was laughable. It was completely laughable. So that was the first thing about Apple Music that just really immediately was putting me off of it and putting a lot of other musicians off of it. Now, the other thing that comes with Apple Music is this Apple Music Connect social network bullshit that Apple has introduced. And Apple touted it as this whole thing of, oh, looky, here's a social network that you can use to reach your fans on Apple Music by posting photos and videos and updates to them, like we used to do on MySpace, like we already do on every other fucking social network on the planet. And here's the thing, we don't have to use Apple hardware to do it because, by the way, guys, in order to post to Apple Music Connect as a musician, you have to own an iOS device. You have to own an iPhone, you have to own an iPad or whatever. You can't do it from a desktop. So I don't even know how this is useful to anyone, in all honesty, because I work from a desktop computer, and I hate to break it to Apple, but a lot of us still do work from a desktop computer. We don't do all our work from a fucking phone. We don't all work in GarageBand. We don't all release shitty little songs made in shitty little apps on shitty little devices. We don't all do that. Some of us are professionals. Some of us have been doing this for a long time. Some of us need to use the tools that we have. But apparently, you can't do that even for Apple Music Connect. No, you have to have an iPhone in order to be able to post to this stupid social network that Apple created. And that's it. This was Apple's lame-ass excuse of saying, oh, look what we're doing for musicians. We're giving you a social media network. They're throwing scraps to us, guys. Sorry. They're throwing shit-covered scraps at us and saying, ha, 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 here you go. By the way, you're not going to get paid anything. By the way, our streaming revenues are going to go up, blah, blah, blah. Now, Apple, laughably enough, said that they were under the influence and the belief that they were going to get 100 million paying subscribers for Apple Music. That's right, 100 million. Okay, so let's do some numbers. I went out as soon as I heard this number and I started looking up some stuff. And I looked up how many users does Spotify have? How many does Pandora have? And how many does Netflix have? Because Netflix, even though it's not a music streaming service, is a video streaming service, right? And completely different model, but still a popular subscription-based streaming service. So what did I find? Well, first of all, Pandora has 75 million subscribers. 75 million. And those are users, not paid subscribers. Pandora in reality only has about 3.3 million paid subscribers. People who actually chuck money out to Pandora to use the Pandora service and get ad-free and things like that. Now that's Pandora, who's been doing it for well over 5 years at this point. They're one of the oldest services and arguably one of the easiest to get into because really for the longest time, all you had to do was go to Pandora and enter like an email and boom, you were streaming music. That was it. Now Pandora is terrible and they are basically hipsters playlist when you come right down to it, but that's a whole other thing I'll talk about in another video. But that's Pandora, guys. Now, moving on then to Spotify. Spotify has something like 10 million paid users, something like that. And that's Spotify, which is really, when you come right down to it, the most popular music streaming service. And the numbers show that 10 million is certainly nothing to snuff at. But then you compare that with Netflix, who has worldwide about 45 million subscribers, paid subscribers. And the bulk of those are in the United States. And that is Netflix, kids. And Netflix is completely a household name. Netflix is something that everybody knows and just about everybody has. And that's Netflix, 45 million. Now, Apple is convinced that they are going to get 100 million subscribers, which I find laughable. It makes me laugh, 100%. Apple is convinced that they're going to get 100 million people that are going to pay for Apple Music based simply on the fact that they're going to feed it into every single mobile device that they have. Good for you, Apple. It's not going to happen. Sorry, guys. It's not going to happen. People are very finicky about these things. People will take the ad-supported option for streaming a lot of the time. They will do that. They will do that and they will think that they are building a music collection. They will pay for a streaming service and think that they're building a music collection. But a lot of those people are not going to buy the music that they hear. They're just going to keep listening to that music, but they're not going to buy that music, meaning actually giving the artist more than 0.007 cents for their music. And most people aren't going to do that. And I'm sorry, Apple, you're not going to sign up 100 million people. Good luck with that. And again, Apple has this whole thing of pretending that they are caring about musicians, that they want musicians to succeed, and all this BS. And they want to pretend like they do because of the fact that Trent Reznor works for them, and Dr. Dre works for them or was bought out. I don't really know. No one really knows what happened with Dre at this point. We just know we shouldn't forget about him, obviously. But all of these different things that Apple tries to point to and say, but we do that, and that means we care about musicians. That means we care, and they don't. And if you keep tricking yourself into thinking that they do, and you keep kissing their ass thinking that they do care about musicians, you are off your rocker. The other thing that I should mention is that Apple rolled out this, Beats One service. And it was this, it's their Beats radio service. And it's hosted by some DJs in LA and New York and the UK who are supposed to be showcasing new music and all this bullshit. And lo and behold, the thing rolls out, and in the first day, basically what they're doing is playing a lot of Pharrell music. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just not there. Okay, you can pretend all that you want, that you care about independent music, that you care about, what is happening in the music world and all this, but it's just not happening when everyone can tell that all you really want to do is kiss the ass of top tier musicians, which is what Apple does, and can tell that you honestly don't care about independent musicians. And why don't you? Because as far as Apple is concerned, they don't actually have any money, nor do they have any cred or clout. That's all there is to it. Apple doesn't think that you or I, as an independent musician, have really any value, except of course if we go and buy their stupid fucking devices. But beyond that, we don't have value to them. They don't think we're tastemakers, and they don't think that we do a whole lot of anything. Again, that is where I think that we are not to be underestimated and not to be undermined. As independent musicians, we can change things. But how are we going to do it is really the real question, because I'm here again talking about yet another stupid music streaming service. And, years ago, I was talking about how you could get onto a couple different services to sell your music. But really what I was talking about is how do you go out and sell your music and reach an audience? And now almost none of us really know when you come right down to it. Because we have all these lame excuses for a music network or a way for people to care about music, all these really lame excuses. And we keep thinking that something is going to be the magic ticket. And it's not. I mean, it's just not. You're not going to magically make a bunch of money off Apple Music and get a record deal. Like, it's not going to happen. Trent Reznor doesn't care about you. He's got his money. Dr. Dre doesn't care. He's got his money. The guys that run Beats Radio 1, they don't care. They don't have to care. So what do we do as musicians? Fine, we put our music onto these streaming services, whatever. We might as well, because what the hell, why not? If somebody finds us through it and we make a fan, that's great. But what do we do in the long run? And what I think that we do is we really work hard to continue to make our own fan bases. And we don't base our fan base off of these no-name services that we just don't get any real metrics from. You don't know who's listening to you on Spotify. You don't have a way to connect to them. You don't know who's listening to you on Apple Music. You theoretically have a way to connect to them with Apple Music Connect, but I'm sorry, guys, it's not going to happen. Apple Music Connect is going to be just another fucking shit ton of musicians posting a bunch of garbage saying, ooh, look at me, and hoping that someone sees them. And meanwhile, the average music listener just doesn't really care. They're there to listen to some music and move on, guys. They don't really want a connection. It's our job as musicians to show people why they should have a connection to the musicians and the music that they really love. And, people want to call me an asshole or a naysayer or whatever because of the fact that that I'm always talking smack about all these services. But, in the long run, I'm sorry, but I know that I'm right. And I just know that as I watch these services and I watch them all roll out and do the same thing over and over again, I haven't seen anything new introduced. I know that I would love to someday create a streaming music service that is actually musician grown and musician owned and actually supports musicians. I really want to do that. It's a hard thing to do. I know what it would entail, and I know what would be good for musicians who are getting onto it. But it's a hard thing to do. And especially when now we have to compete with Apple Music, telling people that all they need to do to get all the music in the world is pay $10 a month. But I'm sorry, guys, it doesn't work that way. So if you're a listener and you're watching this and you've made it all the way through, if you're a listener, I need to stress the same thing to you that I always stress, which is please, for the love of God, buy some music, reach into your wallet, and instead of buying a Starbucks drink this week, use that money to buy the record of a musician that you like, and preferably someone who is that guy who's got that one song that you like, but you don't really know who he is. And it turns out he doesn't have a record label or anything else. He's just a guy who makes music and you heard of him. Give him some money, please. Help him keep his lights on. If you are a musician and you made it all the way through with me on this, please tell your fans and the people you know who listen to your music why they should support music, why they should, pay a little bit for it, why it is good to support music, why just buying a music subscription is not doing anything for the music industry. It's the only thing we can do. Because beyond that, all we're dealing with is the same BS that we're always dealing with, guys. It's just the same thing over and over. It's going to keep rinsing and repeating just again and again and again. And all these companies are going to keep telling you that they're trying to do something new, and they're not, and they just don't really care. So please, for the love of God, stop believing it. Stop believing that hype. Stand up for yourself. Do something for yourself as a musician. Apple doesn't give a shit about you. They don't have to give a shit about you. They never will give a shit about you. You have to do things without thinking that they actually give a shit about you. So that is it, guys. That's Apple Music. And I know this has been a lot more rant than it is informational, but that's the way it's going to go because, again, this crap is all the same crap. So it comes down to what it's going to do theoretically for musicians. And that's what I got to say about that. So if you guys have questions, comments, whatever, get in touch with me here. Get in touch on your favorite social media network. Tell me what you think of Apple Music. Tell me if you think I'm full of shit. Tell me if you agree with me. Whatever. I'm always down to hear it. And as always, keep believing in yourself. Keep working towards success. And thank you guys for watching. I'm Brian Botkiller, and take care.
Red lies, force fed, what to believe.